Hello and welcome back, Warriors of the Covenant, to another episode of Lynch Paints, where I, Lynch, invite you to join me on this great journey to paint the Arbiter himself from the Halo franchise. Now, before we dive in, I just want to say a massive thank you to Kraken Studios UK for sending me this model. It's one of their newest releases. There'll be a link for their shop in the description below. And if you wanted to pick up this or any of their other amazing Halo sculpts, then they have kindly sent me a discount code. So if you want to use Lynch Paints 20 in your checkout before you place your order, you will receive 20% off all your lovely Halo goodies. And of course, if you are new to the channel, then hello and welcome. Join me on this great journey with starting out by subscribing, give me a like, and also comment down below if you have a Halo army at home, or if you are just a massive Halo fan. Well, of course, because you clicked on this video. So, without further ado, let us grab our Covenant gear, our energy swords, and let's take the fight to the humans as they desecrate our sacred journey. However, before we get started, we're going to need a selection of paints, and these are all the ones I've used in this video today, alongside which we're going to need a big fluffy brush, a smaller fluffy brush. We're going to also need a medium-sized basing brush, and of course, the fan favourite, the teeny-weeny, teeny-tiny brush for all of those teeny-tiny places. So we will begin with a simple black acrylic primer going all over the model. Then what we're going to do once it's dry is that we're going to grab a nice dark silver, so something like this, Iron Warriors, crack it open, and then using sort of any form of sort of fluffy brush, so long as the bristles are quite fluffy and also a bit dense as well, it's going to be great for dry brushing. So we're going to take some of this, grab just a sheet of tissue, just wipe off the majority off on there. And then we're going to go ahead and just dry brush all over this miniature with this first colour. Now, if you were to put on just a tiny bit at a time, you get a really nice gradual build-up, which we're going to try and aim for. If you put it on and it looks a little bit too much, then what you can do is just quickly rub some more paint off onto your bit of tissue paper, and then carry on, and you should be able to buff it out and blend it back in again. And then of course, if you have some slightly harder to reach areas with your big brush, then just swap out just for a smaller brush, and then just kind of do the same thing, just remove the majority of the paint off your brush and just go in. Moving on to our next colour, we are going to build up our brightness of our silver. So I have this lovely Granite Steel, and this is a lovely bluish silver. So we're going to, again, same principle, same technique, a little bit onto our brushes, really work it into the bristles on a scrap bit of towel, tissue, whatever, and then we're going to, again, just gently dry brush just over the top. But as we're building up our colours, same kind of thing with doing the wet blending, is that we're just going to focus on the areas where the light source is going to primarily hit the armour plates, as this is going to make it stand out and make it look a lot more realistic. So our dear Arbiter friend is looking pretty damn good already, so you could, depending on what level of painting you're going for, just kind of leave it as this. Obviously, you'd paint his plasma carbine? No. No, I think it's just a general carbine. Anyway, you'd paint that, obviously, chuck some basing on, and you're sorted. But we're going to just take it just a tiny step further, make that armour so really pop as best we can, and have this lovely Rune Fang steel. I think it used to be called chainmail back in the day. And it's a very, very, very bright silver. The great thing about dry brushing is that you don't necessarily need to rinse your brushes out between your colours. Unless obviously you're going from silvers to golds, then maybe I'd probably recommend it. But we are just going to use this, and we're just going to just pick out just the final little highlights, and also it helps just for those little kind of details around the neck plate there and along the back, just to really stand out. So we're just going to hold it at a bit of an angle, and we're just going to come across like this, kind of work just lightly over the top. It's picking out the very, very raised areas of this miniature, because we don't want this to work too much into the recesses and the kind of the flatter areas, because that way it's just going to invalidate the previous two colours that we worked on. So we're going to just pick out the edges with this, and then don't really worry about his under armour, because we can just go over that with some black later on, and of course highlighting, or perhaps even wet blending just a little bit of grey in there as well. But just take your time with this. I find that dry brushing is very therapeutic, because you don't have to be very accurate a lot of the time. You can just kind of slap it on and away you go. So have fun with it, and yes, we'll see you in the next part. So he's looking really, really lovely so far. And then now what we're going to do is that we're just going to tidy up just around the armour that we've gone onto the under armour. And for this we're going to need a medium-sized brush, a nice pot of black, and it will help if you do thin it down with just a tiny bit of water. Just helps to make it smooth as possible. Now that his under armour is been tidied up, we are just going to introduce some of this lovely storm vermin fur. I'm going to start out with just including a little bit into our mixture of black, and of course same brush, and we're just going to thin it down with a tiny bit of water just to help make it as smooth as we can. And we're just going to paint over, focusing on the raised areas, same sort of thing as we did with the metallics. And then what we'll do is that we'll just gradually introduce more and more of the storm vermin fur into our mixture, so it's not boring in just plain black, because of course you want it looking good, you want it looking really nice. So that's what we're going to do. So now I'm just mixing in more of the storm vermin fur, and with the Sangheili skin tone, it is quite a dark, darkish grey. So I think at this stage, I'm just going to very carefully just go in around this section here where we can see his face. It's pretty much on this model just this section here, because the mandibles, they're covered up by little armour segments. Leave that there, and then of course we'll swap out to a much smaller brush as we then pick out a little bit more of his facial features with some lighter grey. But for now we're just going to focus on this under armour and just slowly blending our way up a little bit. So now the under armour is done, and we are moving on to his face, which shouldn't take too long because the surface area is only very small. And speaking of very small, I have a tiny little brush here with a nice fine tip, and what we're going to do is that we're just going to paint the skin just around the eye here. There are a couple of little creases in there as well, so it'd be best to try and pick them out. It's wonderfully sculpted, and a little bit of his teeth there, just on the front section there. And then what we can do is let's grab a little bit of this Administratum Grey, so another lighter grey. If you don't have that, then best bet is just to pop in a little bit of white into your storm vermin fur, effectively, so long as you've got the ability to make a lighter grey, then you're all good. And then we're just going to just add in just a tiny little bit there, just to sort of highlight it just a little bit. Just like that. I'm not quite sure how well you can see that there. But while we have our tiny brush, we are then going to paint his eyes, and I believe it's a sort of yellow. I've got to be honest, it's been a while since I last looked into Arby's eyes, so I'm just going on a gut feeling. I'm pretty confident that they are yellow. So it's going to take some of this, and again, rinse your brush out, make sure that there's still a little bit of moisture on there as well. And I'm just going to pick out, try not to get yellow on the armour. Just a little dot there, then one on the other side. Cool, nice, and easy. And speaking of nice and easy, we are now going to paint his I keep on wanting to say pulse carbine, but it's not. I'm sure it's just called a carbine, but it fires pulses. Anyway, I have this Xerus purple, which is a lovely, deep, rich purple, and then we're just going to paint just the top section here. That goes back just a little bit, and I'm not quite sure if it's the... Nope, yep, yeah, it is. It is this underside here as well with the purple. And then once it's dry, what we can do is that we can just go back over it with a mixture of a lighter purple, just to pick out some of the details and to do a little bit of highlighting. But we want to leave the majority of this miniature so blank, because then we can then paint over it with our silvers, which, funnily enough, I think that we should have dry brushed earlier before. So if you got this far and you haven't painted yet, go back and dry brush over the Carbine. So what I have here is a lovely Gene Sealer purple. So I've mixed that in with a little bit of our Xerus purple, and we're just going to go over the top sections of our Carbine. And then just try and blend it in a little bit, just to do a little bit of wet blending, or you can just jump straight to giving it a little bit of a highlight, which you can do if you like. It's nice and simple. And then what we can do is just rinse that off, grab our tinier brush for these rather teeny tiny places, and we can just give it just a little highlight. It doesn't have to be much. You don't even really need to highlight if you don't want to, but I think just a little bit on this miniature will help. So because we don't want to take away the attention from the armour, and we don't really want the silver on the Carbine to sort of blend in with the rest of the armour, what we're going to do is that I've just gone over the main areas with Iron Warriors, and then we're just going to do just a tiny little bit of the Grey Knight's steel just over the top of the barrel here. So we don't want to put too much detail into it, but just give it just enough, just like that, so it's not going to detract from the rest of the miniature, and that will do. So the final step that I thought I'd just add in is that we're going to take this moot green and we're just going to add just a little bit of green just on the inside there. His thumb's covering the other bit, and perhaps maybe a little bit just on the inside, just in there, just to show off that there is a bit of energy going on in there. It's only a small little detail, but it does add quite a lot, because it just shows that the person painting it, yourselves, hopefully, is that you have sort of paid attention and you've put this detail and this thought behind it. And so that's really going to do it. So we'll pop this guy on the table and we'll see you in a sec. And so here we are at the end of the video. So this is how to paint, well, the Arbiter from the Halo series. It's been absolutely fantastic to paint this guy, and a huge, massive thank you again to the folks over at Kraken Studios UK. Check them out in the description below. And if you wanted to pick up one of these gorgeous mods for yourselves, then you can use my very own special code. That's LynchPaints20, and you will get 20% off your order from Kraken Studios UK. And you can add this guy to either your existing Halo collection, or if you're starting a brand new one. The Arbiter does come in a couple of different poses as well. He doesn't just have the Covenant Carbine, but he also has his energy sword as well, either in a standing pose or running one as well. I picked this one out just because I wanted to paint up that Carbine as well with the purple, but I will be painting the others with, as I mentioned before, with the energy sword. So when that does go up, that will go over onto my Instagram page at Lynch Paints. If you want to check me out over there as well, that'd be hugely appreciated. And of course, a massive thank you to Kraken Studios UK and to you guys for watching along. And again, if you're new, let me know with a subscribe, like the video, and comment down below if you have a Halo miniatures collection. I'd really like to know. There's not many out there. There used to be one like way back in the day, but the company behind it closed down, and then that was that. But there's a lot of very talented 3D printing folks out there that are doing these miniatures, and one of the best has got to be, hands down, Kraken Studios UK. So thank you ever so much for watching. Stay safe, stay beautiful, and we'll see you all next time.